This is going to be a quick video on how to change out your valve seals, and this is going to be for a RZR 570, although it should work with just about any RZR out there. They all appear to be the same design. To do this, I'm going to be doing this without removing our head. To get this to work, we have to make sure our valves don't drop down. In order to get these to work, I set my piston at top dead center on the compression stroke, or you just rotate your primary clutch. So I took my clutch housing off. I rotated my primary clutch counterclockwise until my camshaft was no longer pressing down on our valves at all. And I also took off my crankshaft position sensor so I can look down and make sure it's top dead center. That'll make it a lot easier because you're going to have to rotate this to TDC anyway when you put your camshafts back in to set the correct timing. Then you just need to take off this cover right here. It's just these 3 bolts, and they are Torx size 40, I believe. So you just remove your cover off. Underneath that, you're going to have your camshaft mounts and your timing chain cover right there. These are all 8 millimeters, so you just pull those off as well. Those are a little bit tricky if you have your bed on. What you'll have to do is you'll kind of have to remove it off, or remove it, pull the bolts out, and then slide it out, because the bolts, when they come up, they'll hit your bed. So you remove that. Then you're left with your camshafts. To relieve the tension on the camshaft chain, or your timing chain, it's just this bolt right down here. So you're just going to remove that, and then that relieves all this tension right here. I'm kind of in the middle of this project. I didn't think about filming this until about halfway, but your intake camshaft is going to be in there already. So you're going to relieve the tension on that timing chain. You're going to remove your camshaft, and then you're going to remove your bucket. And the best way I found, or the easiest way, since these are really slippery and covered in oil, you're just going to take your magnet right here. You're going to attach it to the face of that. You're going to slide it off. Then, to make sure that your valve does not drop down, you need a means of making sure these valves don't drop. You can do it a couple different ways. You can take a little rope or a string, a really long string. Take your spark plug out and feed it down in there to the point where it's basically filled that space and your valve can't go forward. Or in this case, I'm using a leak down tester, and since we're in the compression stroke, I can apply pressure through my leak down tester, and that's going to hold the valves up in place. I found about 20 psi is more than enough. 10 psi will hold it up, but a lot of times your valve is kind of stuck to your keepers and the spring. So the initial first couple times when you go to push it in, it's going to want to pop the valve down as well. Then the only other thing, you're going to need some kind of a valve spring release. So I'm just using this. This size fits, I think it's a 25 millimeter. It fits on there just like that. And as you push it down, it's going to allow you to remove those keepers. So I'm just starting on this one. This one was super simple. I'm just starting on this one, and I'll film that whole process. Okay, I'm taking my magnet tool to remove this, sliding this up and out. Don't lose your shim underneath. Your shim is that little circular piece in there. You need that to make sure you get the proper valve lash, so don't lose that. You can take your valve tool right here. This is when you need to introduce the pressure into the cylinder. So I'm going to put about 20 psi in and start pushing it down. The first couple times it's probably going to try to hold in place, but now I can see that my valve is separated from the spring. So I'm going to take a separate smaller magnet, stick it in here, and as I compress these, it should pop those up. Okay, I got one out. And there's the other one. I'm going to remove my spring. My little valve seal is sitting right in there. So you can grab a set of pliers. You can either do just some alligator type deal. We want to make sure we're nice and gentle and wiggle this out. We don't want to scrape that valve. They usually just kind of pop out. There we go. So that's the old one right there. So we're going to take just a little bit of oil, put it on the underside of this. Now we're going to gently place the new one on. And once it gets to the bottom, it'll actually kind of pop on because it needs to seat. And you'll feel a little bit of a push, and it just clicked on. Really, really simple. These do have metal rings around them, right there, and also inside. You just need to make sure you don't crush those as you're putting them on, or else it's not going to seal at all, and you'll get all kinds of burning oil issues. We're going to take our spring, get it right back on there. I set them down in place approximately how they need to be situated. Okay, I push it down a few times just to make sure that it's nice and settled in there. And it looks like it's in there nice and tight now. Put your shim back in place. Like that. And then your bucket. And that's it. So you just repeat that process for all four. These two back ones may be a little more difficult just because the this bed is in the way, but that's the basic process of how you replace your valve seals without taking off your cylinder head.